In this section of the video, we're going to start building what I'm calling the left house section. The house basically has three parts, as you recall: a tower, then there's a left portion, and then there's a right portion. And here we're going to concentrate on the left house section. And I'm looking on page 2 of the cutting guide, and the pieces we'll need to start with are the two sides, the back, the front, two roof pieces, and the base. And there is one note here on the roof. Most of this chipboard, as it says at the top, is that the stiffness should always follow the longest dimension. For the roof, the stiffness should follow the shorter side, the 5.5 inch side. So it's not probably imperative because it's not a really long piece, but if you do cut it that way, it would probably add to the structure of the system. So let's get started. I've got the base piece set out here in front of me, and I've got it oriented with the shorter side facing me and the longer side vertically. And we want to cut out a section down here in the corner. And the way we're going to measure this section is that we'll measure 1.25 inches in from the left side and draw a line. And 1.25 inches up from the bottom. And draw a line. And then we want to come in 3 inches from the right side, and we'll mark a point that's at that 1.25 and the 3-inch mark. And then coming up here from the bottom, we are going to measure 2.5 inches. So this distance from here to here is 2.5. This distance from here to here is 3. And once we've marked those points there, we'll draw a diagonal, and then we're going to make our cut straight up here, across the diagonal, and then across that way, so that we end up with a piece that looks like this. And that will allow our tower can come in and fits into that notch. So that's the purpose of that notch, to build the tower into the left side of the house. Okay. The other thing we want to do to prep our base is to add cardstock joining strips all around the inside perimeter here. So I'm looking at, I have it oriented this way. The strips would be even with the edge, and I'm going to go all the way around on all these little notched areas and everywhere here. So I won't do that on camera. So that will be the prep for the base. Here I have the two roof pieces, and I have them oriented so that the 6-inch dimension is going across left to right, and the 5.5-inch dimension is coming up vertically. For the front roof, we need to cut out a section so that it can fit around the tower. And let me talk you through those measurements. We're going to measure down from the top 1.5 inches, and we'll draw a line. So that's down from the top 1.5 inches, and we'll draw a line. And then we'll measure in from the side 1.75 inches. You can use your mat. That's what I'm going to do here, is measure in 1.75 inches. I'm just going to make a point on that first line that we drew at 1.5 inches. So 1.75 inches in from the left side, 1.5 inches down from the top, mark a point there. Our second point here is 3.5 inches in I'm sorry, it's 3 1/16 inches in from the side, 3 1/16 inches in from the side, from the right side. And then from the bottom here, we'll measure up 2 1/8, 2 1/8 inches. So 3 1/16 in from the right side, 2 1/8 in from the bottom to that tick mark. We'll join a diagonal here. We'll cut up on the line we drew vertically here and across on the line to that point up here, so that we end up with a notch that looks like this. So again, 1 3/4 from the left, 1 1/2 down from the top, 3 1/16 in from the right, 2 1/8 in or up from the bottom. Those 2 points get connected, and then we cut vertically and horizontally, and that's our front roof. Now on the back roof, I've decided to have an access place to get to like a cubby that you could store extra treats in. Most of the treat drawers only have room for 1 Hershey's Kiss, and if you've got more than one person that is wanting to enjoy the treats as you count down to Halloween, you'll need to have some extra treats. And the roof can't hinge open to do that because of overhangs from other roofs. So what I've done here is centered in the middle of this roof, I've cut a 3-inch circle. I just used one of the steel rule Tim Holtz dies. The biggest circle in his 3-circle set is 3 inches, and I've just centered that both horizontally and vertically. Now if you don't want to have an access point for treats, then anything that I talk about that has to do with cutting this hole, putting a magnet in, making the cover, you can just fast forward through those spots. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about adding score tape to some of these sections, extra score tape. You know, we would put some on to add our pattern paper, but here on this front roof, we want to add some abundant tape because our entrance point roof, our entrance roof will come and attach to this roof, and we don't want it pulling the paper away. So I'm just going to take, this is 2-inch wide, but when I say abundant tape, I just want you to come up all around 2.5 inches or so, and it doesn't have to be full coverage, it just needs to be, you know, abundant tape. So I'm just going to put 2 inches there and then come in with another 1/2 inch piece right here. And we'll put more on there to add the pattern paper, but these are the places that are crucial. So that's on the front roof. And then on the back roof, I'm going to, this is above this hole, there's going to be a hinge for that hatch cover. So I'm just going to make sure, and I'm just going to cover this the whole way, just so that I don't have to come back and put more score tape on. But I'm going to put that there. And we'll want to cover all the way around this hole, so, you know, however you want to do it, but you want to definitely make sure that above this hole there's plenty of tape so that the hatch cover, when it gets attached, it won't pull away the paper. So I'm just coming in there, and then I'll trim around this. And I'll continue to outline these sides and around this hole and the remainder of these sides to prep for adding the pattern paper. Now, before I add the remaining score tape, especially to this back access side, I also want to put a magnet in here that will hold the hatch door closed. And I'm using little 3/8 inch magnet so that my hatch door can be 4 inches wide, so that it has an overhang of a 1/2 inch. So then with that 3/8 inch magnet, I can hold it back from the edge about not quite 1/8 of an inch, and I'll just put it centered underneath this hole. And what I like to do is not just stick, I'm using these little, I might have already said this, the basic gray 3/8 inch magnets. I like to not just put them on there because it's kind of raised, but just use my sharp craft knife and kind of cut out a hole for it to go in. And I just take my circle template here and make a little hole so that I can, and you could cut this out in a square instead of cutting it out in a circle, whatever works for you. I'm not cutting super deep because I don't want to, I only want to remove about half of the thickness of this chipboard. These magnets are about a 32nd of an inch thick. So if I come all the way around here, then I can stick the tip of my craft knife in there and remove a layer of chipboard. And sometimes you have to kind of play with it a little bit to get what you want out of there. And then get rid of any fuzzies that are left here behind. And get one of these magnets. These have adhesive back, but now it should sit in there pretty flush with the top. And I don't just trust that adhesive there. I usually put a little dab of glossy accents, or what do I have here? I have diamond glaze, just a little dot underneath the magnet before I pull off the adhesive backing and stick it on there. And then also, I don't want to put any score tape or glue right on top of that magnet. So I don't want to take any chance that it would reduce the magnet's strength. So I will finish up with putting score tape on and be back. So I've cut 2 pieces of patterned paper to fit on these 2 pieces of roof. I'm again using this, the back side of the Cabinet of Curiosities 12-inch paper. This is the one that on the back has some pictures on it. And yeah, so I'm going to attach these down, cut out for the openings, and do a little inking. And then once these 2 are put together, covered, I will, the join goes like this, obviously on the inside here. I'll join it with this strip, and then we'll be back. When you put your 2 roof pieces together, start with the one that's cut out this way, oriented towards you, and then make sure that the magnet is on the side facing away. The magnet is not the hinge side. So then just put those sides together like that, flip it over, put a good hinge in there, and give it a good burnish. Then the next thing we want to do is on this short side, and only on that side, we want to draw a line that is 3/8 of an inch in from the edge. And that will help us align the roof when we go to put it on the building. And the final prep step that we have here is to add some little joining strips to the inside of this that will adjoin to our tower. We won't go past the 3/8 of an inch line we drew down here, and we can just make a little tick mark about a 1/2 inch or so on this side. We don't need to go past there, so we can just cut some little hinging strips to go on those locations. and we'll put them on with their edge facing the hole so that it's a right angle right here. Hopefully you can see that all right. And that will allow us to join our tower to the roof. And so that's the prep for the roof. So now let's look at the left house's side A and side B. Now side A is the big side and side B is the little side. So let's start with side A and cut the angles for the roof. Now side A is 7 inches wide and our roof angles are 45 degrees. So a half of 7 is 3.5. So the first thing we want to do is mark that 3.5 inch point on the top up here of the roof, and then measure 3.5 inches down on both the left and the right and mark a point there. Connect those diagonals and cut those sections off. So that this was 3.5 here and 3.5 here, and we cut those diagonals off. Now the way we shape side B is, it is, as you might recall, 4.5 inches wide. And what we want to do is take it and put it behind what we just cut off from side A and get that lined up and trace that angle. We'll come up here and we'll cut that first triangle will be the same coming off, but then we'll just have a little triangle over here. And that will be what the top of side B looks like. So that's the roof shaping on side A and side B. So now let's just turn our attention to working on side A. So side A has an opening for the additional little drawers for treats and a little niche for some decorations. And the template for that is on page T5. And the way we lay this out is we're going to measure in 3/4 of an inch from the left and draw a line. So 3/4 of an inch from the left side, and we'll draw a line. And then the next dimension over is 1.5 inches. So we'll come 1.5 inches from there, and you can line this up on your mat. You may be able to tell that I've already pre-cut this just to speed things along, but we're drawing 1.5 inches over from the 3/4 inch so that the space in the center will be 1.5 inches wide. And then coming up from the bottom, we're going to come 1 5/8 inches up, and this time I will use my mat because that's a little bit wider than my ruler here. So 1 5/8 inches. And that will be the bottom of the opening. And then to get the top of the opening, we want to draw a line that is parallel to this roof edge. So if you just take your roof edge and line it up with a line on your mat, and then we want it to be 1 inch from there, 1 inch, I guess it's not plural. So we can just line up our ruler on a cutting board and draw the line there. And then we just connect the dots to make that cut, and I've already done that here. And so there is my inset opening, 4 side A. So we want to add score tape around this opening, and then we also want to add what I call abundant score tape to the right of the inset opening. So coming up here to about the about I'm going to draw a line that is 3/4 of an inch from that opening, and I'm going to have, I'm not going to fully cover it, but I'm going to have a bunch of strips over here because the right part of the house is going to attach to this section here. So I'm going to add score tape around the opening and over here, and then I'll be back. So I finished adding the score tape to the left side of the house, and this is what I decided to use as abundant score tape here because I had plenty of 1.5" tape. I've also prepped for hinges here on the back to add the roof on at a later time, but if I was to do this again, I would not put them on until after I put the pattern paper on, because we're going to have to trim this pattern paper along this edge, and I run the risk of cutting this hinge, so that wasn't a very smart decision. So you'll be smarter and you'll put them on after you cut the paper here. Decorative paper. On the walls of the left part of the house, I'm going to use Brews and Potions, and I'm going to use the purple paisley side, and I have cut this piece 8 1/8 inches wide by 11 1/4 inches tall. That's the height of this piece here, 8 1/8 by 11 1/4, and then I've scored 1/2 inch in on both of the long edges. And that allows us to, I think you can see me sliding this back and forth here. There's 1/8 of an inch of play, and when we go to attach this down, we're going to kind of center that degree of play here. We need to do something so that we can cut these openings out that we have here, and I think this method is going to work, but the way we're going to construct this will end up, we need to allow a 1/16 of an inch on each side, so that's the reason for doing that. So I'll add just one more piece of score tape here at the bottom in between the two creases, and then I'll remove the score tape and get this put on and be back. So I've got the pattern paper attached to side A. I cut it even with the edge of the roof up here at the top, but I let these tabs come out, I think you can see, kind of at a perpendicular angle here. I've also prepped them with some score tape on the back, and so the last thing that's left to do to prep side A is just to trim out this opening with some of our 1/8 inch cardstock. So I'll do that, and then side A will be prepped and ready to go.